Today we are going to be looking at decimals and percents and then how we round those once we get them. So the first thing that we want to do is be able to turn a percent into a decimal. So a percent is always a value out of 100. So if we want to write a percent as a decimal, we're going to take whatever the decimal number is and we are going to divide that by 100. So for example, if we are given 72%, we would take 72 and we would divide that by 100. So your options are you can get on your calculator, write your Desmos calculator, whatever handheld calculator, and type in 72 divided by 100, which will give you 0.72. Okay, your other option is to know that whenever we divide something by 100, we're taking that decimal point and we are moving it 2 places to the left. So that gives us a 0.72. So we're going to go through here and look at some different options of percents, and we are going to turn those into decimals. So if we are looking at 56%, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take 56 and we are going to divide that by 100. So again, whether you're moving a decimal point, whether you're using a calculator, that is going to give us 0.56. So 8% would be 8 over 100. So if we do 8 divided by 100, that will give us 0.08. Now be really careful when you're writing that down. It's really easy to miss that 0 there. These numbers can be bigger than 100. That's fine. So we can do 112 divided by 100. That will give us 1.12. If we want to turn 89% into a decimal, we'll take 89 and divide that by 100. So we'll say 89 divided by 100. Which will give us 0.89. $256 says take 256 divided by 100, which will give us a 2.56. All right, those numbers can be really small too. So 1%, 1 divided by 100, will give us a 0.01. Now, once we get some of these numbers right, you'll notice we have different decimals. We also want to make sure we are able to round a decimal no matter what decimal we are given. So the first thing that we need to understand is what those place values are. So if it tells us to round to the nearest tenth or the nearest whole number, we know what those words mean. So if this is our decimal point right here, the number right after the decimal point is going to be our tenths position, right, with a TH, our tenths. Okay, our second place is going to be our hundredths, and then our thousandths. In front of the decimal place, we have our ones position, and then our tens position. Now, the one thing that is maybe a little bit sneaky about this is that we refer to our ones position as rounding to the nearest whole number as well. So while it could say to round to the nearest ones, it's most likely going to say to round to the nearest whole number. So if we are asked to round a decimal, we are going to locate whatever value it's asking us to round to. So for example, if it says to round to the nearest tenth, we'll find what's right after the decimal point and we're going to circle it. We are then going to look 1 digit to the right of that. So we're going to look at the number sitting right after it. And if the value is 0 to 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we're going to keep the circle value the same and chop everything else off to the right. If the value to the right is 5 through 9, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then we're going to bump the number that we circled up 1. So here's what this is going to look like. So if we have the decimal 3.46 and we are asked to round to the nearest tenth, right? We're going to look up here at our list. The tenths position is the one right after the decimal point. So I'm going to circle this one or highlight it or whatever kind of makes sense to you. Okay, and I'm going to look directly next door. So I'm going to look directly to the right. Okay, 6 is in my set of 5 through 9. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So I'm going to take that circle value and I'm going to bump this up 1. So this would round to 3.5. So we have some examples down here that we're going to look at. Okay, so 2.73, if we are rounding this to the nearest tenth, we're going to find our tenths position, right? That's one place after the decimal point, and I'm going to look directly after it. Okay, that's a 3. 3 is in my 0 to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to keep that number the same, and this is just going to be 2.7. Number 2, again, it doesn't matter how long the decimal is. This one says round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to find my tenths position. That's the one right after the decimal point. I'm going to look right after it. Okay, so that's in my higher list, my 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so I need to bump that 6 up to a 7. So this is going to become 4.7. Now, the question does not always have to read to round to the nearest tenth. You have to read the directions. So this one says to round to the nearest hundredth, right? So if we look at our list up here, hundredths is the second number after the decimal. So if we want our second number after the decimal, we want this 8. Okay, so I'm going to look right next door to that. That's a 4. So I'm going to keep that the same and make this a 7.98. Okay, so number 4, round to the nearest tenth. So again, that's my first number after the decimal point. So I'm going to look right next to it. That's a 7. A 7 tells me to bump this up. So this is going to be a 54.1. Number 5 says to round to the nearest whole number. And remember, we said that whole number is the same thing as the ones position. So I'm going to look at that 6. And again, look next door to it. That's an 8. So that tells me to bump it up. So this is going to become a 7, right? I'm chopping everything else off that comes after where I circled. Now, number 6 is a little bit tricky, right? We want to round to the nearest hundredth. So my hundredth is 2 decimal points. So I'm looking here. I'm going to look right next door to it. That's a 5. So that tells me to bump it up. The problem is that if I bump up my 9, that becomes a 10. Right? So this really becomes a 10 in here, which means I need to bump my 3 up to a 4. So this is going to become 9.40. Now, technically speaking, we would want to write this as 9.40, but if you wrote down 9.4, I would not count you wrong.